What's happening, everybody? Y'all good? Did you have a good day? All right. Well, let's have a little fun tonight. Does that sound good? All right. Well, I am excited to talk tonight. We're going to get right into it, and I just want to say this. We're talking about walking with Jesus. We're just going to talk about the walk. And so two questions when you're going for a walk. Number one is who's going, right? Number one, who's going? Did you guys have a good time with your family today? Yeah, I hope so, man. I hope you've been growing in relationships, and I hope that you understand. I showed you a picture earlier, and I didn't really get to it. And I'll just say it real fast. When we were kind of that little group that I took a picture of, that group, when we got back and we just said, you know what, all in, let's just do this together. Let's live life together, and we'll talk about that. But as soon as they came back, we watched in the next 3 months after they got together and just finally said, man, let's just do this thing together. But as soon as they did that, we watched in 3 months, we watched over 100 of their friends come to Christ. Isn't that cool? And they just got back and said, man, you know what? I've been doing this alone, but I'm ready. So 2 questions. Number 1, who's coming on this walk? Number 2 question, where are we going? And so I kind of feel like this. I kind of feel like anytime we start talking, especially in Christian North American circles right now, when we start talking about God and we start talking about where are we going, and so many of you, it feels like you're going to walk out of here like with this map, like with this plan. And so we're just going to line this whole thing out, and it's kind of like this. You're like, you know what? Okay, God, like I'm in this. Like I want to do this together. Where are we going? As a pastor, one of the things I've been asked time and time again, and it depends on their age, I get asked this question. You know what? Number 1 question is like the closed door button in the elevator. It's the most pushed button. And it's just like this. They just say this. Say, Matt, I need some help. I'm like, okay, what do you need, man? What you got? If they're a sophomore boy, they say, okay, I've been eyeballing this girl. And I just really want to know, like, is it God's will for me to date this girl? Right? So, you know, they're like, man, should I date or should I not date? Should it be this boy? Should it not be this boy? Should it be this? Should it be this? And so we just say, hey, you know what? If we're going to talk about where God has me, then it kind of feels like this. It kind of feels like we need to just put out the God map and we'll just lay it out and we'll just say, okay, God, you've got this special map tucked away and you know exactly what your will for me is. So I wish you would just tell me. Anybody feel like that? So here's the thing, I'll just start here, I'll just go, okay, should I date or should I not date? And then you get through high school and you start getting to the end, you start to become about a senior, and what's the next question? What is it? Where am I going to college, y'all? So you're like, next question, God, well, I just need to know your will, man. Is it this college? Is it that college? Like, I need to know, I want to get from destination A, which that didn't really pan out, like I dated her for a while, but it's cool, But so here's what we're going to do. I need to go to the right college, but I want it to be the one that you. So you get into college and you go to college and all of a sudden you're hanging out in college and you get to about your 3rd year of college and then you say, man, you know what, I need that map again. Does anybody know where that map is? Because I'm supposed to do this together. I want to do this. Like I want to walk. I want to go where you want. And I know you've got this will. I know you've got this. You've got my life all mapped out. And so God, would you just tell me, I'm nearing the end of college. What's the question that they're asking right now? Man, where am I going to work? Brother, I need a job. So all of a sudden you're like, do I do master's program? You go, God, like, what's your will? And I want to know, what's your will? And you know what, about that time you start thinking, as soon as you get your first job, you kind of get landed and you go, okay, I think this is, you know what, I feel like I kind of zigged when I was supposed to zag and this maybe isn't the perfect one and I'm not sure I really landed at the perfect school and I definitely didn't date the perfect, but here's the thing. Okay, I'm back on the map, Lord, and like, okay, so I've got my, college and job, and so now next question is what? Who am I going to marry? Oh, it just got real. Because I see that girl and she's fine and I don't know what your I don't know what your secret plan for me, Lord, is, but if it includes a hot Christian wife, that'd be so awesome. And girls, you're like, you're just a sweet, funny, super hot dude. You got that on here? Like, can I get that destination on my map, Father? God, what's your will and what's your plan? And so we start mapping out all these things when it comes to God, and we think about His plans and where are you going to, and it's like we're always asking, we're always wondering, we're always coming to places like this, and we're trying to say, okay, I want to do this thing with you, God, and I want to know what your will is. I want to know what your secret map is. Because, man, sometimes it feels like I'm supposed to go left, but I go right. And sometimes I feel like I'm supposed to go right, and I go left. And I don't really know, and I wish you'd just show me, because I just, could you just give me, I'm here, and this is where I think you want me to be. And so could you just give me, the shortest, I don't want to have to go over here, and I kind of made some bad decisions here, and I'm not, so how, can you just give me the shortest distance between these 2 points? Because I'm here, and I want to be here, Lord. Can you take me here? But see, it's this really funny thing, man. It's like, so many of us, we live this life just saying, God, and then we say, you know what? Have you ever had this happen? You feel like, you know what? I started off pretty good. Like I came to a conference like this, or I had a youth group outing, or I had some major event in my life, and man, I started walking like Jesus, and it was like the first 10 steps, like the first 3 weeks, man, I was rolling. But then, man, I fell off the map. Like I started dating that girl, and you remember that girl. That was bad news. And you remember I started hanging at that group, and man, that girl, that's not on God's map. And I started going over here, and all of a sudden you just start getting frustrated because you're like, man, God, you feel so confusing. I feel like I never know what you're doing, and I feel like I'm supposed to know. And I feel like I want to do stuff with you, but I don't know when and know how. And so here's the thing, man. I just want to spend a little time tonight. And I want to unpack, what is his will? Where's he taking you? Because I sit there, and as you look through here, and it's just real, man. There's this word, Matthew 6:10. Let me just give you some scriptures to back up what I'm talking about here. Matthew 6:10 says, when he's teaching his guys how to pray and his girls how to pray, he says, your kingdom come, your what? Your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. John chapter 4, he's sitting down with a Samaritan woman. They have this divine, it's like everywhere Jesus shows up, it's always like he's always in the right place. I'm always in the wrong place, but he's in the right place. And he says, the guys come back and they see that he's like full of joy. And they said, hey, we went and got you food. And he said, y'all, my food, said Jesus, is to do what? The will of him who sent me, to finish his work. Like I got this thing that I got to do, and I know that these are the steps. Matthew 18:14, it says, in the same way, your Father in heaven is not willing. It's the same Greek word. It's a Greek word called thelema, that any one of these little ones should perish. And so God's in this plan. He's got people on this map that he's got, and it's not just going to get us where we go, but it's also going to take us on this journey, and we're going to find people that are maybe broken, and we're going to help here, and we're going to start. Well, let me keep going. Matthew 7:21, it says, not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven. Got my attention. But only the one who does the will of my Father who's in heaven. So, man, you're like, well, man, I want to be with you, and I want to know, but it doesn't feel like I know. And he just keeps going. Ephesians 5:17. Therefore, don't be foolish, but understand what the Lord's will is. And this one's a little rough, man. I'm just being honest. Luke 12, verse 47 says, the servant who knows the master's will and does not get ready, or does not know what the master wants, will be beaten with many blows. Dang, dude. The world and its desires pass away, but whoever does the will of God lives forever. This is the confidence we have in approaching God, that if we ask anything in accordance with his will, he hears us. For whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is my brother and my sister and my mother. And that sounds great, and that sounds awesome. And yes, I want to do your will, but I have no clue what your map is, or where you want me to go, or how I'm supposed to get there. But there's something different about Jesus, y'all. Like there's something about him. It's just like, I don't know, like for me it feels complicated. I'm always going right when I'm supposed to go left, and I'm always kind of off the map and wondering how to get back on. But it seemed like just Jesus, he just lived on the map. Have you noticed that? Like he'd take a walk. Like I take a walk and I get lost. He takes a walk and he runs into 5 people and they're all healed and they're like all in their right mind and restored. I'm like, bro, we're on the same walk. Like I've been down that road. But why is it, Jesus, every time you show up somewhere, every time you walk into town, when you walk into a Samaritan woman, everybody else was there. Everybody else walked in and they're off getting food. You walk in and you have this dynamite conversation that's transformational in this woman's life, and you end up changing the whole town. Why does that happen with you? And it never seems to happen with me. I mean, do I just not have the map? Was I in the wrong place? So time and time again with Levi when he was a tax collector, the demoniac. There's just, every time he shows up, he doesn't just show up. He doesn't just kind of end up in a spot, but it's like he's in the right place at the right time. And when he steps on the scene, there's just power and there's grace and there's fullness and life. And that's not my life. So I just want to take you to a story. It's in Luke chapter 19, verse 1 through 10. And if you know the story, I'm sure that you do, but I just want to share it with you again. It says, Jesus entered a town called Jericho. I was literally just there. I hate to brag, but it was awesome. And as I was sitting there, and he says he was just passing through. So Jesus got his map out, and he's like, okay, I got to get from A to B, and I got, he was probably up in the Galilee, and he's got to get down to Jericho, and then get there to get up to Jerusalem. And as he's traveling, it says a man was there by the name of Zacchaeus, and he was a chief tax collector, and he was wealthy. Does it seem like Jesus knew a lot of tax collectors? Isn't that weird? It's like the whole town full of like tax collectors. Well, every time you cross a border in this town, there's always tax collectors. Jesus crossed a lot of borders. Jesus he didn't just stay in one spot. He was over here, and then he crossed. And so there's a guy, he was a chief tax collector, and he was really wealthy, and he wanted to see who Jesus was. Maybe because right on his way into town, he'd been in and out of this place quite a few times. And it feels like every time Jesus shows up, and this is true, every time Jesus shows up, something incredible happens. Something amazing, something freeing, something life-giving. And so something inside, he wants to see who Jesus was. But it says, because he was short, he could not see over the crowd. Any short people in the room? It's a hard knock life, right? I mean, imagine being in a place where you got Jesus coming by, but there are too many people in your way. Too many people in your way, and you have this desire, and we're going to come back to this. You have this desire. So many people have the desire to see and experience the Jesus that you and I know. They can't see over the crowd. They can't get to him. Sometimes our demands are too tall. Sometimes our community walls are up. There's a million different reasons. There's a million different reasons why they can't see past, but this guy he was short and he couldn't see over the crowd, but something inside of him says, but man, I gotta see Jesus. So verse 4, he says, so he ran ahead and he climbed a sycamore fig tree. They have these in the middle. It's kind of in the middle of the desert, and they still have sycamore trees there today. They look like tree. I'd love to tell you it was cooler, but it's a tree. He just climbs it, and up there he's just waiting, man. Like a whole lot of people, waiting if they can get a glimpse of something real, man. Like I've heard about this Jesus, and I've heard that he changes things, and I heard that he makes a difference, but man, I got to see it, and there's so many people like this, and we'll get to that. And I just love it. So he said, ran ahead, he climbed the tree, and since Jesus was coming that way, verse 5, it says, when Jesus reached, it says something interesting here. It says, when he reached the spot. Oh yeah, spot. So it must have been like a special spot. Like he was on the map, like God, he woke up that day and he said, okay, God, you've given me the secret map that is like the Illuminati map, and I know exactly where I'm going to stop, and there's a spot on the map, and let me get that out. Where was that spot again, God? Okay, let me get it on the map, and so I got to take a left, and then I take a right, and there's a big tree. So like right in front of the tree, you want me to stop, right? Just stop right in front of the tree. Just figure, okay, we're going to stop right in the tree, and we're going to stop at the spot. But either way, he says he stopped at the spot. He looked up and he said to him, and I just love the way Jesus sees people, don't you? And he just looked at him. He says, Zacchaeus, calls him by name. I love that about him. He says, Zacchaeus, come down immediately. I love, he says, I have to go to your house today. I'm coming to you. I know you climbed up a tree and you're trying to get to me, but I see you. And I know your name, and I'm coming to you. So why don't you have me over? And so immediately he came down at once and he just said, you got to be kidding me, man. Jesus coming to my house. And all the people around this were so excited. No, they weren't. All the people around him were like, man, I wanted to see Jesus. I came because I had some stuff that I wanted to see him too, man. I wanted to get the feels. I wanted to see him do something in my life. Man, I came to a conference like this because I want to see Jesus show up and do something cool in my life, man. Like, what about me? What about me? Yeah, that's great, that dude, but that dude hadn't been following you. That dude hadn't been showing up to youth group. That dude he doesn't have the right family. He's probably going to walk away anyways. He's a tax collector. He's a chump. He's a sellout. Jesus, what about me, man? I'm the kind of person. Aren't crowds like this, isn't this where you pour out your spirit? To a bunch of people that are like all in the right spot, and we all have the right hearts, and we sing the right songs. We go, Jesus, you're awesome. And we listen, and isn't that where you want to hang out? Man, not that dude. It just says, but Zacchaeus stood up and said to the Lord, look, Lord, here and now. And I think he meant it. He said, here and now, man, I give half my possessions to the poor. And he's a rich guy. And he said, and if I have cheated anybody out of anything, by the way, brothers cheated some people. He said, man, if I've cheated anybody anything, man, I'll pay it back 4 times the amount. Jesus said to him, today salvation has come to this house because this man too, this guy is the son of Abraham. I love this guy. The Son of Man came to seek and to save what was lost. And you know what? I just got to be honest with you. I started digging through Scripture, and I started looking at this word called will. The word called will is a Greek word, thelema. Thelema doesn't mean what you and I think it means. It doesn't mean this. God's thelema is not a map that he keeps locked up in secret telling you when to go left and go right. The word thelema, used 64 times in the New Testament, is like this guttural heartbeat sound. And when you talk about will, it's like somebody being on their dying, like on their deathbed, and they write out a will. And what's written down is really just an expression of words of what was what on that person's heart. And I know right now there's a whole bunch of people that are really confused, asking a lot of questions about, God, what's your will for this and what's your will for that? But here's my question. Let me ask you a couple questions about God's heart. Bless you. Wow. Can I ask you a couple questions about Jesus, about the heart of the Father? See, before this, if I came in here and I said, man, what's God's will for your life? You guys would have spouted a bunch of things and you would have hoped it was on the map. But if I ask you, what's on God's heart today? And I said, are orphans on the heart of God today? Yes or no? Are lost people on the heart of the Father today? Yes or no? Are lost, disenfranchised, broken people that have been marginalized, are they on the heart of God? Yes or no? Does God care more about plans or does he care more about people? See, it's funny because if I start asking you about your 10-year plan and your 5-year plan, everything gets confusing. I start asking you about the heart of God, and I guarantee you, most of you know naturally in your chest what the Father wants. And I'm just so crazy to think, I think he wants us to just do that. So I met this guy, couple really. I was on a plane flight. As a matter of fact, I flew Southwest again today, and I am the worst Southwest flyer that you've ever met because you're supposed to check in, long story, and if you don't check in on time with like distracted people like me, then you get on the plane and you're the last person on, and you don't get to choose your seat, and so I'm always in between Bubba and Bubba. And they're like the biggest people on the plane, and I walk in, I'm like, oh, middle seat between Bubba and Bubba. Awesome. I squeeze, and it's greasy and slidey, and so you're welcome for the mental picture there. And so I remember I was flying to San Diego. I was going to meet some church planners, and I had just got done teaching a conference, funny enough, on being the real thing and walking like Jesus and making moves towards people and really loving people. And so I get done teaching, and I'm like my flight from there up to Chicago, I'm just saying, Lord, you know me, like I don't want to be fake, man. I want to do what's on your heart. I don't want to just give my life to trying to figure out left or right or up or down or which direction. But God, I want who's on your heart. I want to know what's on your heart. I don't do that all the time, but I'm learning as I follow him. If I'm going to walk like Jesus, Jesus had this unique ability to know exactly what was on the Father's heart. So I walk on this plane. So I walk on the plane, I'm in Chicago, and I'm literally the last person on. I'm like, oh, Lord, you don't even like me, like help a brother out. And so I walk in this plane, I start to walk down the aisle, and in maybe like 3/4 of the way back, there's an aisle seat, and I could feel just like Shekinah glory, like on the seat. And there's like this young couple here, and I'm like, me, and I'm like, God, you love me. And like I'm walking back to it, and I look at this couple, and I said, hey guys, is this seat open? They're like, yeah, come grab a seat. And I'm like, oh, there is a God, like thank you. And I go to sit my stuff down, and he's like, man, it's gonna be awesome. I just landed $1 million deal this century, and we are gonna get totally wasted. And I was like, this is not exactly what I was expecting. So I sat down, and right next to me, it was me, and then it was him, and his name was Jeremy, and the girl next to him, his name was Celine, and he had a tank top. No judgment, but it's February and a tank top, so a little bit of judgment. And he's in this tank top, and he's like this ripped. He started this GNC brand. He just met Arnold Schwarzenegger. I'm hearing like the whole thing. And I'm realizing as I'm sitting down, I'm like, it's going to be a long ride. Like we're in Chicago, and we got to get to San Diego, and they haven't even de-iced the plane, which they're going to have to do. So I got like 7 hours ahead of me, and I'm sitting next to this guy. And so I'm like, oh, I'm just going to make the best of it. So I just, I'm like, hey, talk to me. And so he starts talking to this girl, and they start, he's like hitting on her like crazy. She's like, oh, no, you don't. I'm heading to go see my fiance. And he's like, dang it. And so he looks at me, and he's like, so have you, where have you been around the world? And I'm like, I've been a few places, He's like, where do you find the best prostitutes? I'm like, this is going south fast. And I'm like, that's not my I don't. And he's like, oh, are you married? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, but if you weren't, I'm like, no, still no. Still no. So he turns to her, and she starts talking, and come to find out, and this is happening like this. Like, I've been on the plane like 5 minutes. He turns to her, she's like, she tells him that she's in the adult entertainment industry. And I'm like, Lord, are you kidding me right now? And she's this, I don't even want to say, because I want you to Google it. She does something that's not good. And she's sitting there, and they're talking, and he's like, that is totally awesome. And you're like, tell me all about it, and this is so awesome. And long story short, they get in this conversation. I'm like, Father, is this like a headphones on kind of deal? Because I'm not picking up what you're putting down right now, right? Like, I know you love people, but these people are crazy people. And so I'm sitting there, and she starts talking, he starts talking, and now they're both talking about the best places to sleep with people. I'm going, I don't know. I'm good with people, but I don't know what to do. And so she leans over, and he says, so you long story short, he says to her, so you basically take money from like really rich guys? Is that how that works? I won't explain it. She goes, no, actually some of them are so poor that they can't even feed their families. And I'm like, time out, that's my in. I just kind of looked at her, and I was like, hey, girl, you seem like a really sweet girl. I lied a little. And I'm like, so, tell me about that, because I did. I was like, I just got back from Africa like 2 weeks ago, and I was with these ladies that, have been raped, time and time again, and they can't raise these kids because they're in the slums of, this terrible place, and they can't feed their kids, and literally after about the third time, they just start wrapping the babies up when they have them. They walk them out in the woods, and they leave them for dead because they can't actually watch them, and so you're sitting here telling me that you're taking money from people that can't feed, like, how do you seem nice, don't mean it, but you help me with that. And she goes, I never thought about it that way. And right then, tank top dude turns head on a swivel, and he just looks at me with like these big eyes, and I'm like, hey buddy. I don't know where we're going. And he just starts sobbing. Does the shoulder thing in his tank top. I'm going to say tank top a lot. He deserves it. And he's trying to talk, and he's got the snot bubbles come down. And we're like totally on the tarmac. We have not even moved. And he is bawling like a child. And he's like, and I'm like, hey, and he just keeps trying to talk to me. I'm like, shh, you gotta be quiet, man. I'm like, and he looked at me and goes, are you a Christian? And I was like, I think so, but this is getting weird. I say, yes, I am. And he goes, and he just went in this story, and he just said, you know what, when I was 18 years old, I was at this conference, and I accepted Christ, and I decided to go overseas, but nobody knew the baggage that I had, and I got overseas, and I joined this missions organization. I wanted to give my life, and when I went over there, I ended up falling in love with this girl, but she was married to another guy, and I slept with this guy's wife, and then I felt like such a terrible person, nobody there to walk with me, and so I just said, man, I'm not fit to go do that, so I left that, and I came home, and I said, I'm just going to make money, and I'm going to give that to the kingdom, and maybe I'll just do that, and so I just set out to be an entrepreneur, and so I became an entrepreneur, but then I got sucked into drugs, and then I became a drug dealer, and now I have a girlfriend, and he's like, I'm trying to find a picture right now, but I can't find any with her clothes on. And this morning, I just was in the shower, and I landed the deal of the century, and all these things around me, and I'm standing in the shower, and I just said to God, none of this matters, and this is all empty, but I don't even know anybody. I don't even have any Christian friends, and if you would just, Lord, if you would just put somebody in my life today, man, I would turn around. And he just said to me, he's like, just promise me you'll talk about Jesus. Just promise me. And I was like, bro, I'm in, bro. I'm good at that part. So we're talking, and he's like, he's a wreck. He's like confessing every sin that he's ever done. I'm like, we could do this later, but sure, and so, Celine is over there, and she's on her phone. And she is not happy with our conversation. She's got her little fake nails, doing this little thing. I've got a great impression of her voice. I should probably just do it. And so, okay. You talked me into it. So, I was going to do it anyways, but but like literally in that moment, she looks over, she goes, excuse me, but I know you guys are talking about God and everything, but I am not lying. She's like, but I just don't understand how you guys can be talking about a God that, like let's just say there is a God. Well, then he's like letting starving children like die all over the planet, and he's like mean, there are wars, and he just lets that happen, and I'm like, so you're giving God a character lesson. But I just sat there, and I don't know if you know this or not, and I know probably most of you have experienced God show up at places like this, but have you ever had God show up in places like that? Because as clear as he speaks to me, he just whispered something in my ear, and I just looked at her, and I just said, hey girl, sorry. You all are killing me right now. But stop it. But I just leaned over to her and I said, girl, you, that's how I talk, leave me alone. Okay. I leaned over to her and I said, Celine, I said, are you mad at God because of what's happening around the world, or are you mad at God because he lets you get abused as a little girl? And she started bawling. And Tank Top Boy's bawling, and she's bawling. And we haven't even de-iced the plane, and I've got like 7 hours on this trip, and I'm just going, what are we doing? But I'm just telling you, man, something inside of me, and this has happened time and time and time again. Guys, I think it's great that we all come in here and get the feels, and we're like, yay, God, and let's throw our hands up or anything, but you all don't even understand the power that comes when you join his heart, and when someone is on his heart, and you stand in the gap, and you get to be like Jesus, and you get to walk into places like that, and you just get to have your eyes open and say, Father, I'm open for whatever's on your heart today, I'm in. Because when that happens, I got stories for days. I can tell you about the McDonald's guy. I'll just give you a real fast one. So I'm going to McDonald's, and I've just been talking, and I'm driving home, and my wife wants a Diet Coke. I don't know why, but we're like, they have the best Diet Cokes. So I'm driving home and I'm getting ready to get in line, and I kind of had a busy day, and I was like, Lord, you know what? I've been kind of disconnected. I'm just talking to him on the way home. I'm like, but you know what? You know me. Like, I want to do what's on your heart, and I feel like I've been just living a distracted life. And so God, I want whatever's on your heart. I want to do that. And so I drive into McDonald's. I'm just praying, and I'm just thinking, like tomorrow. And so I drive up and I get into the little line where you order your food. It's McDonald's, and Lord says, okay, why don't you talk to this guy in the drive-thru? I'm like, okay, now I'm crazy. Like, God doesn't want me to talk to the drive-thru dude. Ain't happening. No, I am not talking. No, I'm going to get my Diet Coke and my double cheeseburger because I deserve it. And I'm out. So I'm like fighting with myself. So I drive up and I get to the line and the doors pop open. This dude leans out. He goes, hey, man. I was like, what's up, buddy? He goes, it's going to be a couple minutes on that burger. And he just stands there. Window open, looking at me. I'm literally like, no, I am not talking to the McDonald's guy. No, Lord. And so I'm like, okay. I just lean over and say, hey, did you have a long night? And I can't even make this up. He said, well, yeah, man, like I went to this Cuban party and and I'm like, yeah. And he said, and then a Mexican, I can't even make it, and then a Mexican showed up and I'm like, yeah. And he's like, and a knife fight broke out, and man, it was a long night. And I'm like, again, where are we going, Lord? And I just, within 2 minutes, I'm not even making this up, we are praying in the McDonald's line. And isn't that cool? That's only God. 3 Diet Cokes later, me running through trying to connect with him, and we end up at a coffee shop and find out that he was raised as a white supremacist, and he's been just as empty as crazy and just got out of prison and needed help, and that dude found Jesus, right? Amen. Isn't that great? And y'all, I don't have time to tell you the million stories that have happened in our lives when, and I started realizing this too, that early on I started trying to walk like Jesus, but I did it alone. And I've realized that when it comes to fishing for men, that's what we're all called to. That we keep trying and we keep failing because we go out and say, okay, God, I'm finally going to fish for men. I'm finally going to do it. So you get your rod and you get your reel and you go, zzz, boop. There's no bites. You keep trying, you keep trying, you keep trying. You're like, I just am not good at this. But what's funny is I started realizing that fishing was never like fishing Jesus style. Fishing for men was never like rod and reel. Fishing was like community, like boats, like we all get in nets and we all fish together. And when we fish together, we find fish. See, Jeremy and Celine, I remember Jeremy, he's the guy on the plane. I remember getting off the plane, and as soon as I got off the plane, I'm sitting here going, okay, I just had a great conversation, but somebody's got to take the next leg of this. Like, God, I need your people, wherever they are, whoever they are. And Jeremy starts saying to me as I'm walking out of the airport, I just finished praying with Celine and her fiance, and her fiance is like, I am really confused. And like, we just keep walking, and Jeremy's just saying there. He's like, man, you got to, like, how long are you staying? I'm like, I'm going to be here a couple days. He's like, you got to stay at my house. I'm like, no, I do not. No, I do not, but I'll meet you, man. Like, I'll meet you, and you just tell me where to meet. And so he's like, okay, I'm like, okay, I've got one morning, and we can meet. And so he's calling me, he's texting me, he packs up, he moves out. He's like trying to figure things out. He's going to meet me on Monday morning. This is like on a Saturday afternoon. He's like, Monday morning, I'm going to meet you. He meets me at the place. I have just spent time with all these church planners, and all these church planners are sitting here talking about, man, we need funds, we got to figure out, and they've got this dream, and they're all locked up because they feel like God's not, it's not big enough to come through on his vision with them, and they're like, man, it's gonna be like a couple $1 million, and how are we ever gonna do this? And Jeremy walks through the door, and they're all stressed out about their plans, and I'm sitting here talking to Jeremy, and I'm like, okay, dude, like we got to come up with a game plan because you were just born into a new family, man. And I got to get you connected with people because I'm like this part of this, but now you need people to come around you and to help you grow and to figure this out. Like, it's not rod and reel, it's like net, and we're all in. We're like the family of God. You don't know it, but you got brothers and sisters you don't know yet. Now I got to get you connected. And so he's like, okay. And so we start talking about this, and he's like, and by the way, I've got like a lot of money to give. I was like what do you mean? He's like, maybe like a couple $1 million. So we had this conversation. I said, hey, look, I have an idea, but you can't tell them. And I'm gonna help you find a way to do that anonymously so that they don't treat you differently, and we'll talk about this. And then I start talking to them, I say, hey, this is Jeremy, he's up from North County, and he lives up there, and you guys are all south. And they're like, wait, where do you live? Wait, where's your work? Oh, dude, we just started. The 3 of those guys had just made a decision to go up and get mentored by a guy. Guess where that guy's office is? In the same complex as Jeremy's office. And once a week, they go up and they start meeting and discipling that dude. That's crazy. That's crazy. And now, why am I, man, what are you doing, man? What are you talking about? Y'all, can I just be dad for a second? Man, I love you all. But continue to come into places like this and just get another emotional high to change that one more little sin pattern in your life and try to get over it, man, I'm just telling you, that's not the way. And Jesus said, man, seek first the kingdom and his righteousness, and man, I'll take care of all of that. And so many times, man, we're so North American. We want a map and we want a plan and we want to know it's going to work out. We want to know it's going to be stable and that we're going to have our stuff and keep it too. And there's just this beautiful thing about walking like Jesus and loving like Jesus and investing our lives relationally like Jesus and painting pictures with our lives about what it's like to worship and what it's like to really see people, to see him the way he sees them. He loves people, man. And we're so caught up in us and our plan. And we're still trying to get over this sin, and we're trying to break into a new friend group, and we're trying to get over loneliness. I'm just telling you, there's something magnetic, there's something powerful about saying, I want to do what's on your heart, Father. And I'll give my life for that. And I've watched as young man after young woman has just said, I'm in. Like, Father, if it's on your heart, I'm in. And when you have that kind of heart, when every morning you lace up your shoes and you say, I am the son, I am the daughter of the king, and you made me, and you've given me power, and you've given me freedom, and you've given me grace, and I don't deserve it, but God, I want to do what's on your heart. You love people, and it's my city, my world, my family's full of them, and I'm tired of walking around like a zombie trying to figure out if I'm going to get what I need. It's time to put down your map and to pick up his heart and say, when I pursue you, I get everything. And all of a sudden, when you start chasing him, when you start doing that, then guys, so many of the things that you all are heart-wrecked over, they just start taking care of themselves. And when you meet Jesus with his heart for people and you step into people's lives, and it's just like something happens. And so many of you, man, you come to places like this and the worship and you're like, man, I really need a good prayer life. And then you go home, and because life is still about you, you're trying to have this prayer life, but you're not putting yourself in a position to need him. You got all these sin struggles. And man, I get it, man. Some of you guys are so wrecked with sin right now, and I get it, man. I'm a former abused kid. And you're trying to change, and you're trying to undo addictions, and you've tried 8 billion times. And you just start wondering, well, maybe I'm just not good at this, and maybe I'll never get past this. But man, I'm just telling something. When you walk like him, when you go after his heart, when you go after his people, when you say, God, I'm available, whatever you want, there's just something happens, like the Spirit of God that he promised to give us, like catches fire. And all of a sudden, it's not like you sit around trying to pray. When you get engaged in the kingdom and you say, Father, I want whatever's on your heart, I'm in today, all of a sudden, man, you start praying because you need him to show up. Sin struggles start moving to the back. You start giving, you start serving, you start investing, you start accepting. It's like one step after another step after another step, and you find yourself in the middle of transformation. You find yourself, you've always wanted that kind of power in your life, haven't you? You read the stories of Jesus, and it feels like he shows up at the right place at the right time, and there just happens to be mystical power there. See, Jesus knew. And you wake up, sons and daughters of the King. Spirit of the living God in your chest, you wake up and you say, I want to do whatever is on your heart, Father, today. Anything that you want, I'm in. And man, you start seeing God show up in your life. I really believe the way you always dream, the word, when that happens with me, I get zoned out too. Man, when I start loving people, seeing people, man, it's like the word comes alive. It's like sin starts being seen for what it is. Man, you love enough young stop eyeballing them trying to get something out of them. You just long for them to be seen and long to them for the known. And then all of a sudden, it's like, sometimes, even some of you that came this week, it took you a while to worship because this gear isn't normal for you. And some of you need all this to worship. And I feel like Jesus just saying, man, just grab a hold of my heart, man. If you knew the Father's heart, if you were engaged in the kingdom, if you would walk like me towards people, the ones that I love, the ones that I want to show up in their lives, then I'm telling you, you'd worship like he was breathing. And every day, you'd see something new happen in your life and you go, what in the world, God, you're so incredible. Who's like you? Who's like you? How do you do this? Because you watch people walk out of chains and walk out of fears and walk out of shortcomings. Man, I've just seen it too many times. But something has to happen inside of you where you say to yourself, you know what, Father, I'm done with the plans that really, when I get to the bottom of it, and I know we can fake ourselves into taking mission trips and feeling about everybody else, but when the mission trip is still about your selfies and it's still about making you feel better about being in the kingdom, it's not. I'm not saying God can't use it. But man, he's got something better for you than that. And Jesus has such a passion for people. Whether they're up in a tree, whether they're down on the mat, whether they're stuck behind all of their religion, wherever they are, Jesus loves people. And you have the opportunity to join him. And I just got to tell you, some of you in the room, and again, I just want to be dad for a second, if that's all right. Some of you, man, you've been here all week, and I just, somebody prayed over me. I just want to say this to you. First group in the room. Let me just say it. You tuck it away and you just do something with it. Some of the power and authority and plans that you've been searching for would be found if you would wake up tomorrow morning and say, I will do, Father, whatever is on your heart. I want to see people the way you see them, and I want to respond the way you respond. I guarantee you, I promise you, God would show up in your life in a powerful way. But some of you in the room, you're up in a tree. Maybe you're up in a balcony, or maybe you're back here, and you're not looking to share. You're looking for somebody to find you. And I also want you to know, Jesus loves people. He loves you. He loves you. He's such a good dad. And right now, man, he's just speaking into your chest saying, man, stop hiding, dude. Girl, you're my girl. I love you. I've laid my life down for you. Just come, like tonight, like me and you, let's talk. Let's pour your heart out to me. Tell me what's going on. Because I am right here. Because Jesus has this unique way of every spot he stops, there's this radical transformation of life. And some of you, he wants to change your life tonight. So I just encourage you, and I just want to pray over you. I just want to bless you. Brothers and sisters, would you find joy, power, strength in grabbing some people together and saying, hey, you know what we're going to do when we get back? We're going to make a commitment. We're not going to spend all of our lives trying to figure out what sports team and who we're going to date and what job we're going to have. As for us, we're going to wake up and say, Father, who is on your heart? And we're going to take steps towards them. Dearly Father God, thank you for my brothers and sisters. Would you give them stories? Father, would you give them stories of when they ran into your heart and they were a little nervous and they didn't know what to say, but with their very weak faith steps, either in their friends' lives or their parents' lives or their school, that they just took these weak steps forward, but their weak steps ended up being these powerful moments. Father, where you showed up and you reminded us that we're not just these puny simpletons, that when we have the Spirit of the living God in our chest, that there's power, that there's authority, that there is not, like Joshua in Joshua 1, there's not a place in this world where our feet will touch, where you're not going to give us territory. So give us the hearts of those men, those women, those young men and women, those parents, Father, that don't know you and they need you and they're desperately longing for someone to step in, for somebody to kind of pull them out from the crowd and pull them over so they can finally see and experience Jesus. Father, we want to do what's on your heart. Help us see it. Help us have faith. It's in the powerful name of Jesus I pray. Amen.